Welcome into this Big Ten Today. We're presented by Gatorade on this Thursday. Dave Rivson and Jake Butt. I mean, we're talking college football playoff. We're talking Heisman. This is a fun time of year.
It's fun, and it's chaotic. We love college football kind of because of the chaos and the unpredictability, but I don't know about you. I don't remember it being this chaotic when I was a player. Does it just seem like we are trending up?
Well, I think it's the expanded playoff,
yeah.
Right? So you have so many more teams in contention for it than
the chaos has bigger implications.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's fun. It's fun. It is a blast. There's a ton to talk about. We mentioned the Heisman. We're going to start with a different award that the Big Ten is in the running for. That is our big story, the Joe Moore Award, given to the nation's top offensive line, announced its semifinalists yesterday. There are 10 of them, and fully 40% of that group comes from the Big Ten. You've got Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, and Oregon, all part of that group. All 4 of those teams in the top 6 in the Big Ten in rushing yards, all in the top half of the conference in terms of fewest sacks allowed. And you can see 2 of those 4 on the Big Ten Network this weekend. The big board showcasing the matchups for Week 12. We've got number 2 Indiana battling Wisconsin early. It's followed by a massive ranked matchup between the Hawkeyes and USC. The weekend gets started with number 8 Oregon hosting Minnesota tomorrow night. Top-ranked Indiana has Ohio State, I should say, has UCLA in primetime. So let's dive into our games first, Jake. And you have been studying Indiana because you're going to be calling that game. What stands out as you look at the Hoosiers?
Can I completely abandon you and talk about the Joe Moore Award real quick?
Yeah, if you'd like to.
I am not surprised to see Oregon, Indiana, or Iowa up there, but when you cover Michigan and listen to the media, it is maybe a bit shocking to see Michigan up there, but not the way they're playing. And I want to give Grant Newsome a ton of credit. I mean, he took on a gutted offensive line. He is a young offensive line coach. He has taken his fair share of criticism, much deserving the way they're playing, though. So I think that's really cool, and I wanted to acknowledge Grant Newsome. But what stands out to me about Indiana, Dave, this is just a complete football team. Each week they have a complete game plan. It's on the micro and macro scale. It's like holographic in a sense. Okay, I'm into that stuff.
Yes, I do.
On any given play, you're going to find all 11 players playing with fundamentals and technique, and then straining through the echo of the whistle. It's like every coach's dream. But then on the macro scale, you can directly look at what they're doing in the first quarter and see how it's related to what they're trying to do in the fourth quarter. I think that's a big reason why they've been able to win games in the fourth quarter down the stretch. And I think the key of this is they have the ability to beat you on the ground or through the air. Of course, their defense is outstanding. But it's Fernando Mendoza. And yes, we talk about a Heisman moment. Another great drive, game-winning drive on his shoulder. But I think back to that Maryland game when they ran the ball for 300-plus yards, and there's Mendoza, a guy that, hey, it'd be cool to win the Heisman. I want to put up stats. And what does he say to the media? He says, listen, Maryland is playing drop coverage. They're daring us to run the ball, so we'll run the ball for 300 yards. And to me, it's just that is a football team. There is no individual that is more important than the team as a whole. And I give credit to Signetti, the staff, and the quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, because you can just see the belief of this team growing. They're really hard to beat.
They lead the nation in scoring offense. They've proven to be impossible to beat, as it turns out
Literally,
so far
yes.
this year. But it is interesting because you bring up the run game. And when you think of a team that leads the nation in scoring offense, I think you typically think of a team that just throws it all over the yard. And to your point, that just isn't the case with Indiana. They throw it extremely well. They have a quarterback who may very well win the Heisman Trophy, but they can run it as well. Indiana is number 1 in the Big Ten in time of possession. They're in the top 5 nationally in time of possession. Again, I just don't think that necessarily goes hand in hand with the team that leads the conference and leads the nation in scoring, but it just shows you how good this offense is.
Yeah, and part of that, too, is your defense's ability to get stops, force turnovers, and get the ball in your offense's hands. It also shows an ability to extend drives and play ball control. We meet with Wisconsin staff this week, and we're talking to Coach Tressel, the defensive coordinator, and he brought up a really good point. He's like, You know, the thing about it is Indiana rotates running backs as well. Obviously, a Joe Moore Award offensive line, they have the ability to run the ball. But when you watch with these running backs, it is like a boxer. They are running through you to punish you. It's a body blow, it's a body blow, it's a body blow. And then what happens is in the fourth quarter, when you need a drive to go win the game, you've exhausted the defense. So they're not at their best. Of course, execution and all that, but they're like, that's where I say is it's on any given play, hidden in that play is the totality of what makes Indiana such a good football team. And again, it goes back to Cignetti doing a great job as the coach.
All right, so we know Wisconsin is really banged up. I mean, they may start their fourth quarterback of the year in Carter Smith. Again, it just speaks to kind of all the misfortune that they have had here in the last few years under Luke Fickell. And yet they're coming off a great win against Washington, a ranked win. How do they carry some of this momentum forward in a scenario that kind of looks like a difficult / borderline impossible task?
Well, first off, just that was such a cool image to see the coaches hug Coach Fickell, the players celebrating with one another. I mean, I got to imagine that they were like, man, we feel snake bitten at some point, but you can never say that. And then Fickell even said his daughter plays on Indiana's volleyball team. They were in town, so he got to have breakfast with her Sunday morning. Just what a great weekend. I asked him, like, does it feel like you got to fill up your gas tank a little bit? He's like, absolutely. So now, you know, what is this week about and what is the rest of the season about is they're playing a lot of young guys because of this, because of the injuries. Guys that they're excited for and will count on for the future. Can they continue to build upon that? These two freshman linebackers for Wisconsin, that's as good as a freshman linebacker unit as I've ever seen in college football. 51 combined tackles over the past 2 weeks.
Crazy.
It is simply absurd. And I think their defense is really starting to play true unit defense. Biggest test against the best scoring offense in college football right now. So that's the identity of Wisconsin. It's that defense. That's the matchup I'm most interested in seeing.
We will have Luke Fickell on Big Ten Today coming up on Friday, so we look forward to visiting with him. History does tell us that the Hoosiers will put up some points in that one. It gets us to our Gatorade big stat because they've been putting up points against everyone. The Hoosiers averaging more than 52 points per game at home this year. That is on pace to be the most for any Big Ten team this century. Interestingly enough, this year's version of USC is not far behind. The Trojans averaging better than 49 per game at the Coliseum this year. Trojans, of course, with a huge game coming up against Iowa. That game is also on the Big Ten Network. They're in a good spot in that it feels like were they to win out, given how difficult these games are coming up, they would do enough to find themselves in that college football playoff bracket. But easier said than done to win out. You got to beat Iowa at home. We know how good the Hawkeyes are. And then next week, Oregon on the road. But let's go first things first here. What do you see in this matchup? The great offense of USC, the outstanding defense of the Hawkeyes.
Well, I think first things first is even though you are focused about this matchup, you have to have awareness of the season as a whole, and that it's a different type of mindset for Lincoln Riley to lead his team. When you're playing in these big games, you know, it's emotionally exhausting. You have to expend emotional energy. And for USC, the challenge is, can you be perfect this week, then reset, be perfect against Oregon, reset, be perfect against your rival, and all of a sudden you're in the playoffs where you obviously have to be perfect. So how does Lincoln Riley guide his team to where that they can be perfect on any given Saturday when they need it? And then the challenge is, from a matchup standpoint, you have one of the more explosive offenses, a quarterback in Maava that is as good as you'll find in pushing the ball down the field with the deep ball to his talented weapons against an Iowa Hawkeye defense that doesn't give up many deep balls. That completion Dante Moore had to set up the game-winning field goal was the first deep ball completion Iowa's defense has allowed in 3 games.
Wow.
So they just don't give you much. And I think what I'm really interested in seeing is I think we've seen this USC team start to evolve a little bit. Like when I think about Lincoln Riley, they're going to win games on the shoulder of their quarterback throwing the football. But what we've seen in recent weeks, the Nebraska game, they had to win by running the ball and playing great defense. Northwestern, we see special teams start to show up. When you're playing a team like Iowa, they dare you to make a mistake. And then they play ball control with their offensive line. I'm curious what Lincoln Riley does with this quarterback, Jane Mayava, to avoid making those big mistakes. And then certainly, how does the Trojans defense stop this Hawkeye run game? Because, man, that offensive line up front is playing as good as anybody.
We got two really good run games in this one. I mean, USC is the only team in the country averaging more than 300 passing yards and more than 200 rushing yards. But as you say, man, Iowa can really run the ball. They run it more than 60% of the time, which leads the Big Ten. And Mark Gronowski is such an integral part of that. Now, the flip side is they don't throw it particularly well. It, I have to believe, makes it a little bit easier to defend them. How much do they have to show you something in the pass game in order to win this game?
Well, I think they've shown enough because, I mean, think about the inclement weather there against Oregon, against a good secondary and a good defense, and still they've shown the ability to make throws when they need to make throws, which is something we literally just couldn't say prior to this year in recent years. So yes, the identity is running the football, and really, when you talk about being balanced, it's because you want to have layers to your offense. The defense has to consider more than just one instance. So most teams, it means running the ball and throwing the ball. But I think Gronowski's legs give this offense layers before we're even talking about throwing it. Sure, you can hand the ball off to your running back, but Gronowski can keep it. Yes. It's read options. So they already have layers just built within their run scheme. And I think Tim Lester is the most underrated play caller in college football right now for what he's done with this Hawkeye offense. Everything starts with the Trojans. Overcommit, 8, 9-man boxes, seriously. Overcommit to stop this run game. Because if you can get Iowa into 3rd and long, I think you feel good about your chances.
Yeah, make them prove that they can beat you through the air. They're actually a less efficient passing team statistically, Iowa is, than they were a year ago. But again, it hasn't mattered, and a lot of that is, obviously the defense is phenomenal, but a lot of that is Gronowski and that run threat from the quarterback spot. He is the only player in the country who's scored a touchdown in every single game this year, so it speaks to how good he has been. Again, you can see that game as part of a great doubleheader on Saturday. Heisman contender Fernando Mendoza leading the Hoosiers against Wisconsin first. Then it's Iowa USC in that huge showdown. Coverage begins with countdown to kickoff at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Michigan State announced yesterday that it had reached a negotiated settlement with the NCAA regarding rules violations by former football staff members. The violations, which included impermissible recruiting inducements and benefits, occurred during Mel Tucker's tenure. The school agreed to 3 years probation, which will primarily restrict recruiting. MSU also will be penalized 1.5% of the football program's budget, which is reportedly well over $50 million. Tucker and 2 former staffers also received show cause penalties. The school will also be forced to vacate all of its wins for the past 3 seasons. Michigan State said in its release that it was, quote, disappointed in that portion of the penalty. Some really good stuff there from Urban on the 2-minute drill, and obviously Oregon benefited from it immensely, really executed it well in tough conditions against Iowa. But now they have another challenge. They got a quick turnaround. They're taking on a Minnesota team that is well rested. Remember, Minnesota coming off a bye. Game is tomorrow night, so Friday night game. What's the challenge here for Dan Lanning with his team?
That is the challenge. I mean, this is a really tough spot for Oregon. It's always tough to come off of an emotional victory. You factor that it was on the road. It was a very physical game, and now you got a quick turnaround to a team coming off the bye. So it's mental. Dan Lanning, as his leadership is imperative here. He cannot make or show any signs of weakness, which he never has and won't. But then I factor in what made that drive so special, DeCorian Moore out. Obviously, Evan Stewart it sounds like maybe he's close, was not there. Gary Bryant injured, Kenyon Sadiq injured, Alex Harkey, your right tackle, injured. So what the mental challenge then becomes, and I'm very curious to see what the conversation and game plan is like with Dan Lanning and Will Stein offensively. Will Stein's greatest gift, it is a creative offense with motions and shifts, and they are going to scheme guys open. It's really fun to watch and study. But to me, with all these injuries to your wide receiver and tight end room, and considering the fact it's a deep running back room and a Joe Moore Award offensive line, I want to see them run the ball. Just get physical in the trenches, run the ball. That's going to be the game plan to victory.
And they lead the Big Ten in rushing, so it would not be counter to kind of what they do. I know we think about them as a wide open offense, and you talk about all those injuries. It's remarkable to have that game-winning drive with all the players they have hurt. Then you think about the strength of Minnesota. It's the pass rush. So if you can kind of negate that by having a strong run game, that helps you too. That defensive line from the Gophers is awfully good.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, that's going to be the test for sure. And then I think the flip side too is Darius Taylor's a big piece of this game. You know, whether or not he can play, obviously been hurt. Sounds like he's close, but we won't know. But he's always a major bonus for the Gophers when he's on the field.
Yeah, we'll see whether or not the bye week helps him. They're such a different team. I mean, they have struggled mightily to run the ball when he has been out of there this year. We'll see whether or not he's back out there. Again, that game tomorrow night should be fun in prime time in Eugene.
Sayin loaded, wide open, 44-yard touchdown. A major strike for the Buckeyes.
Sayin sliding. Zone. Touchdown Buckeyes. 19-year-old looked like a veteran on that play.
Play fake. Sayin looks. Touchdown Buckeyes. Julian Sayin sharing the sugar.
What a season Julian Sayin is having, completing nearly 81% of his throws, on pace to shatter the NCAA record for single-season accuracy, Jake. But there is so much more that goes in to Sayin's greatness than simply throwing the ball.
Yeah, Dave, no one's playing the position of quarterback better than Julian Sayin. He's a redshirt freshman, but technically and fundamentally and operationally, he's playing like a guy well beyond his years in terms of experience. And I got 3 great plays to show you fundamentally who Julian Sayin is as a quarterback. It all starts with his mind, having situational awareness. It's 1st and 10, it's early in the game, and he knows he doesn't need to take a sack right there. He knows he's got a one-on-one matchup with Carnell Tate up top, but his freshman running back misses a block on a linebacker. It's going to happen. So rather than try to hang on to this ball and maybe complete it, but maybe risk being 2nd and 20, watch how quickly he flips his hips, gets his feet set in the patented quick release from Julian Sayin. You see him? Hips get flipped, feet are set, ball is always in throwing position. Instead of it being 2nd and 20, it is now 2nd and 7, avoiding going backwards. This very next play, you're going to see a 45-yard touchdown. But to me, this play shows everything that makes Sayin such a special quarterback. Again, understanding the coverage. He has Jeremiah Smith running down the middle of the field against a Tampa 2 linebacker. We all love that matchup. But the key is you got to affect this safety just enough to give him a window to throw. Well, how does he do that? Watch the feet and fundamentals of Julian Sayin. It's going to be a little half boot rollout. That's going to widen the safety to give him a small window. And I say a small window for this exact reason. Look how quickly his feet get set. That allows him to throw a 45-yard frozen rope. Jeremiah Smith could be blindfolded running down the field and say, Jeremiah, lift your hands up when you cross the goal line, and it would be a touchdown. His accuracy is outstanding. Final play is a big-time throw against Penn State, and it's the exact throw that allows him to potentially win the Heisman. Pre-snap, this is not a great look. It's Jeremiah Smith running a post on a safety with 10 yards of cushion that's effectively going to double-team him. Not a look you want pre-snap, but Julian Sayin is reading the body language of the safety. He's flat-footed. He's not getting enough depth. And what we say in football, if you're even, you're leaving. Jeremiah Smith is going to run to that open grass. Sayin, look where he releases this. From the 12-yard line, Jeremiah catches it on the opposite 34-yard line. That is 54 yards of air throwing ability. Another frozen rope dime to the best wide receiver in all of college football. Yes, they have talent, but Dave, fundamentally, technically, Julian Sayin is the best quarterback in college football.
The deep ball accuracy is amazing, but to your point, it's just incredible how quickly he has picked all of this up. I think we were there at camp in the preseason and thought, I don't know, on the quarterback spot, right? They're so inexperienced there. You're replacing a guy who was so good in Will Howard. Now you got a guy in Julian Sayin who may end up, to your point, winning the Heisman Trophy. It is remarkable. It speaks to the program at Ohio State and how well they develop their players, but it also speaks to how ready Julian Sayin was to take over the position.
And a Belele with the shot, and he scores!
How about that, Asanto Nabalele?
Showtime with a drive, extended finish, my goodness! Phoenix Showtime, what a finish!
Thornton, corner 3, he gets it! On the bottom of the net is Thornton.
Michigan State has done a spectacular job denying Penn State opportunities. Now in front,
And talk about being on time. Reese Lawback puts it in.
Big always a good turnover.
Steele inside for two.
There you go, Kennedy Cambridge just right off of Kylie Gary Grayson. That's a great steal there by Cambridge right there.
Fulgaris, interception, taking it himself and throws one down. Huge dunk from Fulgaris.
Ellie Torrance showing off the defense, but there's McMiller. Flashing through the lane, spin move, and she gets it to drop. Another steal opportunity, and this Nittany Lion defense is fired up.
Workhoff keeps it in. Makes a man miss. Moves in, shot, goal! Will Horkoff!
Howard with it, over the search, back to Howard. He's gonna get up and throw one way downtown.
Upstairs grabs that one. The lob! Amari Bonham upstairs.
Would have to beat Ohio State. USC has a really tough schedule, including games to finish against Oregon, and then, of course, UCLA as well. They have Iowa this weekend. Nothing easy for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. Joel, I want to go from teams to individuals because we saw quarterbacks again show out. Ohio State did what it has done all year, and Julian Sayin up near 81% completion rate is ridiculous. His numbers are slightly better than Fernando Mendoza, but Mendoza has now had multiple, if you want to call them, Heisman moments as part of his season, including this past weekend. I know you're involved, you're a voter, I'm a voter. How much do those Heisman moments actually matter when it comes to deciding over the course of the year who should be the Heisman winner?
So, you know, Heisman moments are great, but really, I like to define it a little bit differently, Rick, and that is, are you great when greatness is required? That's the mark of a truly terrific player. And for both Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza, and I know this is more about Mendoza, they were in positions where not just good football was required, great football was required. And Mendoza specifically has been in that position multiple times, coming off of a pick six on the road in Austin against Oregon, and he's got to drive down and score. Tie football game on the road against Iowa, 13-13 with a minute, 37 left. And he's able to put together his best football. And now, down 87 yards away, no timeouts, and a minute 30 left, Rick, and he goes right down the field. It was incredible. The throws he was making, the leverage he was providing his wide receivers, Cooper down the boundary, seam, Nowakowski down the seam, Becker on the sideline, Cooper in the back of the end zone. Incredible throws. And so for me, yeah, you can say like, oh, that's a great moment for him, but really it's about what was required for him, and of his team in those moments, and that's when greatness occurred. And I don't think you can overlook that as a voter. And unfortunately for Julian Sayin, we haven't had that opportunity for him at Ohio State. Maybe that shows up at some point. I would say that the one possession you look up and you're like, there's some pressure there for Ohio State. Penn State gets within a one possession game at 17-14 going in, and they start the third quarter and Sayin just goes right down the field. They've been so good and so efficient that they haven't put themselves in a position where greatness is required because they've been so dominant defensively, throwing the ball. I have not seen this level of efficiency throwing the football down the field in a long time. You know, maybe Penix in Washington a couple of years ago en route to facing Michigan in the national title game. They threw it this well down the field, but man, Sayin is accurate. He's quick with his release. The coaching staff says a lot of quality things. One that sticks with me is that his brain is faster than his release, and his release is one of the quickest in the entire country. So we're dealing with excellent players in Mendoza and Julian Sayin.
Joel, I do want to go back to the Indiana-Penn State game. In knowing you a little bit now, I think you're like me. I realize every day how lucky I am to be able to go to work and talk about college sports. But you and Gus had that moment on Saturday. I go back to the call on that Cooper touchdown where Gus basically loses his mind and his voice. I hope it's back for this weekend. And you point out that if the grass is, another millimeter long, then maybe Cooper's first foot is down out of bounds. I mean, what's a moment like that like inside the booth watching a college football finish like that?
I mean, I got to tell you, like, I was just a fan. at that point. You know, like Rick, it's really hard to provide analysis of that because I'm just losing my mind about like, that was incredible to watch. I couldn't believe it. And from our vantage point, you know, we're sitting there at about the 50-yard line in the broadcast booth. And so when I see the play and the body positioning, first I'm like, dang, he almost hit his head on the crossbar. Like he was up there. And then from my vantage point, I'm thinking to myself, there is no way. I saw a touchdown being signaled by the back official, and I'm like, no. And so that's why I don't say anything. Gus has his call, and rightly so, because he gets a touchdown call. So he goes in and he has his call, and he's reacting unbelievable with passion and joy. And that's why my first comment was, did he get his foot down? Because in the back of my mind, I'm like, there's no way. And then we're showing the replay, and it's slowly inching down. And that's where he and I are both just like, oh, like, I did it. He did it. So I was just a fan. There was nothing else I could say. I couldn't think of anything to say. You know, what are you going to say? Oh, look at his body control. It's like we all saw it. It was wild. I'll always remember moments like that. I think that was one of my favorite three. That's easily my top three games that Gus and I have called together.
We had the exact same reaction in the green room. 9 of us watching it in there. I thought the exact same thing. There's no way he's in bounds. I mean, Penn State's going to win this football game. And then you see the replay and you think to yourself, it's one of the greatest catches I've actually ever seen in 30 years of covering college football.
Yeah, and he would never admit it, but I think Mendoza was basically throwing the ball away. You know, like my guy or nobody and probably nobody. But it's like the safest throw you can make right there to go that high. Like he's not really trying to complete the ball. If you like, I've played the position, you know, like when you go that high, he's not like, oh yeah, Omar can make that catch. Cause it's like, you have no idea. He would never admit that, but I think Mendoza was trying to throw it away.
I think you're right on both counts, and I know that he will never admit it. Let's get time with you on 2 games coming up this week. And I mentioned USC and the murderer's row of the schedule that they have inside the Coliseum this week against Iowa. Jaden Mayava's been good. He's been somewhat inconsistent. But, Joel, I've been fascinated by the fact that Lincoln Riley is mixing and matching Mayava as a runner now, almost as often as a passer. How much more dangerous does that make USC's offense?
Well, it certainly puts a huge amount of pressure on the defense and puts them in conflict to try to defend and equate the numbers when a quarterback can run and be elusive. Now, having said that, Rick, I think this is a terrible matchup for USC. This offense for SC hasn't quite hit on the cylinders that they did pre-Wayman Jordan's injury. I know King Miller has been good, but he hasn't been Wayman Jordan. And so this offense is not quite what it was, and they're facing a defense that is uniquely suited to frustrate an offense like USC. USC wants chunk plays. Iowa doesn't give them up. They have layers of defense. They're going to force you to snap it 10, 11, 12 times in order to get the ball into scoring position. I think that frustrates USC. I think this is a really precarious situation for SC to be in. They have a better matchup against Oregon than they do against Iowa. I really believe that this is a tough matchup for USC. I think Iowa wins the game on the road.
Wow, early call by Joel Klatt there for the Hawkeyes, which would obviously, again, scramble up the college football playoff if it comes to fruition. Michigan is in position, as we discussed, to get to the college football playoff. And I know so many people are already focused on the game on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. We understand why. But you got to win the other games leading up to that one. And it starts this weekend in our backyard. You and Gus will be here in Chicago for Michigan Northwestern at Wrigley Field. I know this probably means a little bit extra special to you. You have a baseball background as well. What are you thinking about getting ready to call this one?
Well, Michigan being able to run the ball, you know, and can they do that against Northwestern? Northwestern is just a prototypical tough, hard-nosed, fundamentally sound, good football team. They just are. They're veteran in the right areas, in particular up front on offense. Caleb Komalafe. Their defense is opportunistic. They're sound. They're physical. They're violent. They're tough to move the ball against. Oregon struggled to move the ball against them in a game I called earlier this year. So I have this thought and this idea of like, how well can Michigan just line up and run the ball? Because to me, their offense acts as a line of dominoes. And it's very difficult to start at domino number 3 or 4 in the string if you want to knock them all over. And it has to start with running the ball. That allows Bryce Underwood to throw the ball when he wants to versus when he has to. In a straight drop back game, I don't love Michigan's offense. But if they can be on schedule and they can run action pass, they can get to the tight ends, then all of a sudden that offense becomes very potent. Not just good, but potent. And their run game opens up off of that. I think that's going to be difficult for them. I think that this is a matchup that is going to be a difficult matchup for Michigan. I think that their defense is going to have to play very well. And then it comes down to situations and making plays in those situations. They were able to make big plays against Washington in a tight game in the third quarter. We'll see if they're able to do that against Northwestern on Saturday.
In a really cool environment, you guys have Chamber of Commerce weather, supposed to be in the mid-60s on Saturday. If you need any dinner recommendations, I'm here for you. As far as picking up the tab, that falls on Revson.
Okay, we'll take care of that. It's great to see you, man. Listen, I can't. This has been a wonderful season. I can't wait to see how it all plays out.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Joel.
You got it.
In honor of Native American Heritage Month, the Big Ten Network spotlights legendary figures in the conference's rich history. A sharpshooter on the floor, Bronson Koenig's legacy in Madison extends past his contributions to the basketball program. The Wisconsin native finished his career with 1,459 points and 270 career three-pointers. He currently ranks second in Wisconsin history for career three-point field goals and ranks first for three-pointers made in a single season with 103 in 2017. Koenig earned the 2017 USBWA Courageous Award, given annually to an honoree who has demonstrated extraordinary courage and reflected honor on amateur basketball. As a senior, Koenig visited the Standing Rock Indian Reservation to join protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Tonight, you can catch women's hoops, Iowa on the floor for action against Drake. Coverage begins at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Former Hawkeye coach Lisa Bluter on the call for that one with Mike Hall, which should be really cool. We were talking about that game, or we heard Joel talk about the game at Wrigley Field, Michigan and Northwestern. He'll be on the call for that one. I know you'll be interested in seeing what happens between those two. This is such an important stretch here for Michigan. Got to win these next two to put themselves in position to knock off Ohio State and get back to the college football playoff. You heard Joel outline it. He thinks it's going to be a challenging matchup for Michigan. What do you see?
I agree with him. I mean, Northwestern is a team that's really disciplined, very few penalties, and they're uniquely built to kind of stress the things I'm most curious about with Michigan, starting with their linebacker room. It went from the deepest linebacker room in the Big Ten to what's going on here? Barham injured, Rolder injured, Sullivan injured, and we know Northwestern likes to run the ball, really like their backfield in the way the offensive line has progressed. But then on the flip side, I think this is a good opportunity for Bryce Underwood, because going into the bye against Purdue, there was a regression of fundamentals. Footwork wasn't there. Turnovers, red zone turnovers were really, really costly. Not going to work for Michigan to reach their goals. And what Northwestern does defensively, Dave, they're a quarters-based defense. And really, what the advantage of quarters is your safeties sit at about 10 yards. They're active downhill in the run game. Northwestern knows Michigan wants to run the football. So I foresee a game plan of Chip Lindsey, heavy play action once you establish the run. What does Bryce look like in terms of his footwork fundamentals and accuracy off of play action? There should be, in theory, some opportunities to complete passes. I think for Bryce's confidence, that would be really important going down the season.
Question for me is whether Northwestern can score enough points.
Yeah.
Right? They haven't scored more than 23 points in any game against power conference opposition. They tend to make mistakes. A lot of turnover issues. Red zone hasn't been great for them, so that'll be the challenge. Could you score touchdowns rather than field goals?
Yeah. And can Michigan be aggressive enough to force some of those mistakes down in the red zone? And again, it goes back to the health.
Yeah, it is a series that Michigan has dominated. They have won 8 straight against the Wildcats. Last Northwestern win was in 2008. We'll get you ready for that one and the entire weekend tomorrow, as I'm joined by Ross Dellinger and Dave Wanstedt. And as I mentioned, but it bears repeating, Luke Fickell joins us on the show. We will see you tomorrow.